All right, we're going to go back to chapter 1 now, and this chapter covers one of the main points of this class, which is media literacy. The great moral issues of society have played out in the media, and it is important that we, the audience, and the creators of media understand the impacts of our creations and how to read messages that we are constantly receiving. So let's take a look at chapter 1. Media ubiquity. Exposure to media is constant in our society. It is ubiquitous, or it's all around us all the time. And one of the things that we have to do in our day and age with all this media everywhere is multitask. Media multitasking is basically simultaneous exposure to messages from different media. And media multitasking has become the status quo in our busy world. We read stuff off of our computer with the television on while talking on the phone, while we text, while listening to the radio, while driving a car. We spend about 30% or 5 hours of our day when we're awake intentionally involved with mass media. And then we are hit with another 39% of our time, or 6 hours, with media connecting with us while we are doing something else, like cooking or walking in the mall or driving. So 68.8% of the time when we are not asleep, we are taking in mass media messages, and that's 2/3 of our awake time. So this has resulted in dependency. Personal dependence. Most of us depend on media for information, entertainment, distraction, as a means to exchange our ideas and our thoughts. And everything from traffic and weather reports to planning an outing, we follow the media closely so that we know what to expect from the world. And we also count on the media to identify dangers in the world, like illness or accidents or icy roads. So it's a symbiotic relationship that we have between us and the media, because without us, they can't survive. They have to have people to advertise to in order to sell space to advertisers and make revenue. And then we need them to inform us about the world around us. So we take in messages fed to us constantly, and we learn about general stuff to survive. But we also find out information on the really pressing issues that are facing society. And then this exposure helps us formulate our own opinions and our own ideas about what's happening in the world. So this persuasive discourse allows free expression and a free exchange of ideas. The concept of this free exchange and how important it is to a democratic, educated public was first stated by John Milton in 1644, and what he called it was the marketplace of ideas. There's a quote that it's like that the marketplace of ideas is kind of the same as a marketplace where you buy food. You are able to discern between good food and bad food through your own reasoning, bad vegetables and good vegetables. So the consumers of information can weed out bad information. And so I have a famous quote by Milton up there about this marketplace of ideas. Milton felt that individuals can use their power of reasoning to improve their situation and to know truth, and that this would be possible through the free exchange of ideas. And in Milton's view, no idea should be barred. The people would weed out the right choices through reasoning. So varying viewpoints like Fox versus MSNBC would be condoned by Milton for the most part. I mean, I'm not really sure how he would feel about, corporate involvement and advertising and all that playing a role in it too, but as far as the very different viewpoints, he would be very much in favor of that. So the first step in becoming a media literate person is to be aware of the media and how different things affect it. So the message form is about understanding that we are not the only one in the audience, and just being able to see the differences between an interpersonal communication like a letter or a personal call or a text that's trying to sell you something. And this seems really simple, and most of us know that when we get a letter in the mail from Publishers Clearinghouse, that our name has been auto-filled into it and we know the difference. between a personal call and a salesman who might use our name. But it's not always the case, and many people get duped by these types of media tricks. Take, for instance, those email scams where the prince of such and such he needs to deposit money in your account and blah, 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 because of this and that, and has all these excuses why they need to get money from you and deposit a whole large sum of money in your account. And a lot of people fell for that scam, and it's still going on today. And the reason that they fell for it is because of a lack of media literacy. But because those letters were sent out on this massive scale. So understanding the message form is seeing the difference between a one-on-one communication and a mass message, like a promotional flyer where they've used your name. Dear Bob, you've just won Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes. Possibly. They always have this small print. The next thing in media awareness is the message versus the messenger. So this is kind of that old saying, don't kill the messenger. It applies here. This type of literacy is just being able to distinguish between the message and the messenger, like not getting angry at a newscaster who delivers bad news. Just because somebody is reporting on a topic doesn't mean they condone it. It doesn't mean they disagree with the message. They are simply the messenger. Motivation awareness is an important part of reading media because you need to understand what's behind the message. Who funded it? And what are they trying to convince me of? And why are they trying to convince me of this? It makes a big difference when you understand who is transmitting a message and why they might do it. And you'll have a deeper understanding of the way that it was presented to you and why you are receiving it. So motivation is a biggie here as far as being literate of the media. Media limitations, this is technological limitations, and they have different potentials for shaping a message. Like a film about color might not come across as well on an old black and white TV, or a CD can give you a fuller understanding of music than a book that writes about that music. And a CD-ROM with additional information about that music might give you a fuller understanding than just a CD. So they're all forms of mass media, but each has a very different potential for delivering a message to you. And the limitations shape the outcome and understanding of that message. Traditions in media are like the foundations which inform us of the reasoning and the motivations of mass media. The past informs the present, like the Constitution and free speech. The media's role as a watchdog of government, the Alien and Sedition Act. These are all monumental occurrences and realizations that have changed our view on the role of media in our society, and it helps us define what it means and how it should work. So understanding those traditions in media can help you be more literate of the messages you receive. And that's why we learn about them in class. Human communication is the essence of mass media. In the beginning, interpersonal communication was the way it worked. We communicated one-on-one or in small groups, and we interacted with one another on a personal level, face-to-face. And then as time moved on, we began to use group communication as a form of talking with many at the same time. And while group communication is still a form of interpersonal communication, the message has reached further and further until finally we figured out how to interact with the masses. Mass communication is dispersing a message to a large number of people that are at widely separate locations. So whether it's through a book, a transmitter, or the internet, the mass message is delivered through something outside of ourselves to a wide range of people who do not need to be close or even within earshot to hear it. So here are the pieces that transform a message from interpersonal to mass communication. The audience. The mass audience is eclectic, meaning it's a group that comes from many different sources, and it's Heterogeneous, which means it's made up of many different kinds or parts of things that are the same, but at different stages. So we have all the people in the audience, and they're all from different places, and they're all made up of widely varying parts, and they're all at different stages in their life. Distance is another element that makes a message for the masses. Mass media messages reach people beyond the communicator's reach. So a book from New York being read in LA, a video conference, an online video on YouTube. There's distance between the communicator and the receiver usually. Feedback. The mass audience historically generally lacked the opportunity to give immediate feedback. Now, with the internet, this is possible. But with most mass media, traditionally, the response to a communication is delayed. And this is seen as a common characteristic of mass media, even though it's changing now. The mass media has had a huge impact on culture, and it has unified us in ways that have changed society and the spread of the bank of human knowledge to anyone with access and a will to take in the information. This unification has created a cultural identity that makes us feel like we're sharing the same experience, such as being American, apple pie and baseball and valuing freedom. This all comes from this flow of information, this shared knowledge and this shared cultural experience that we get through the media. So this unity is a cohesion of values, ideas, motivations, and issues that help us get things done, change the world we live in, and relate to one another. The influence of mass media has been spread far and wide with books, TV, radio, and now instantaneous internet. And issues that face us like war, abortion, public school, gun control, healthcare, gay marriage, the government budget, they all gain consensus in a public platform and shape our lives every day. And this moral consensus is what gets laws passed and define our society through communication of right and wrong ideas and what our value system is. Another effect of this spread of ideas is the monoculture that comes out of it. It's the idea of fragmentation or society really breaking off into niches of interest, and this is also called demassification. The media begins a cycle of people being influenced and living an identified lifestyle or belonging to a certain demographic, and then advertisers market to them through narrowcasting. We might identify with a message because it was crafted just for us. This narrowcasting is very evident in cable TV with things like the Food Network or the radio station She 106, which is obviously designed for women of a certain age group. The advertisers and the media really nurture subcultures, and they do this because they can get the most out of their advertising dollars. This fragmentation of the audience has even recently been linked to our current political polarization of the country, the blue and red state division. This type of sub-audience classification, the I'm this or I'm that identifying, has been nurtured by the mass media and encouraged. This narrowcasting fragmentation of demographics of people has been fueled by advertising dollars and revenue. Economics is probably the best indicator of why a media company would do one thing over another thing. And economics explains their behavior. If they don't make money, why do it? Without an audience, a source cannot sustain itself. Profits are king, and we live in a capitalist society, and media companies are built on that capitalism, on that capitalist ideal. Capitalism is a system that rewards producing good or desirable products with a revenue stream or a source of income. So advertising is the revenue stream most companies depend on. Procter & Gamble are one of the largest advertisers. They pump $5.4 billion a year into just the United States alone. And this revenue stream is necessary. It was estimated a few years ago that without advertising, an issue of Time magazine would run about $16. So in this system, which, there's really no end in sight, advertising subsidizes the consumers in trade for their exposure to the products, which leads to them profiting. Editorial content is just what fits in between all the ads. And it's anything that's not advertising something. It's the news. So while this is the reason that consumers purchase and subscribe to media, the editorial content, it's actually an afterthought for the companies. Advertising is king, and then editorial content is stuck in the spaces that are left over, or the news holes. So another way profits are made and costs are offset is subscriptions and direct sales. Subscriptions, especially in recent years for printed publications, have really gone down, but these were always a secondary income stream, and that they just offset production costs. Direct sales is the purest relationship between the consumer and a product. They don't have a middleman, so there's no advertising in between to get the person to be persuaded to buy something. They buy it based on their opinion of it. And this is what books rely on, and a lot of times music relies on, and historically movies. But this pure direct sales method in movies has been diluted by product placement. And there has become a middleman, and movies have become basically really long advertisements for products a lot of the time. Other revenue sources include government funding, like with PBS, and merchandise sales, and secondary incomes, like action figures and t-shirts. So here's a little spiel on Rupert Murdoch. He basically owns a media empire, News Corp, and this is a global company. And he owns companies everywhere. He owns 20th Century Fox Movie Studio, The Wall Street Journal, HarperCollins Books, Fox Television Network, among hundreds and hundreds of other companies, including TV and cable stations, newspapers, publishing companies, film companies, news radio, television, and also like entire cable systems. Rupert he's really just an example of some of the less than virtuous ethics kind of surrounding our media systems. And he's kind of seen as valuing profit over everything. He is quoted as saying that the reason that Fox News is so slanted is because it's more popular, and that the reason he gave money to Obama's campaign during Obama's first run for presidency, and he said that he did it because he was winning. So he's always on the side of the winner. He's kind of known as being apolitical, and that he values only things that he can get something out of, like how much money he can make before the issues that are actually part of whatever he's using to make money. He's a pretty interesting fellow, and it's good to know about him, to understand some of the messages that we get that shape our lives every day. So I'm going to end the lecture right there, and we will discuss this chapter further in class. Thanks.